Sir, people like you don't belong in the priority line. Step aside. Those words cut through the lobby of Blue Ridge Community Bank in Roanoke, Virginia, sharp enough to make a few customers lift their heads. The teller who said it, Megan Lively, a woman in her early 30s with a stiff smile and colder eyes, didn't bother lowering her voice. She wanted it heard. She wanted it to sting. And it did. Elias Papa Eli Coleman, 78 years old, paused mid-step. His fingers tightened on the curved wooden handle of his cane, the one he'd carved himself back in '92. He wasn't a big man, 5'7" on a good day, but there was something about the way he carried himself. A quiet steadiness. The kind carved out over decades of doing the right thing even when the world didn't. But in that moment, standing under the harsh fluorescent lights with Megan's words hanging in the air, he felt that old familiar burn in his chest, the burn every black man in America knows too well. A few customers avoided eye contact. A couple glanced at him with that look, that here we go again look. One older white man cleared his throat and shuffled sideways like just being near Elias might get him in trouble. Elias breathed in slowly, remembering what his father used to say. Some folks don't need a reason to disrespect you. They wake up already loaded. He stepped forward anyway. I'm just here to handle my business, Elias said, his voice low, steady, almost too calm, same as everybody else. Megan rolled her eyes. Right, and I'm sure you have an appointment in our private services division. She pointed toward the regular line, the one already stretching past the stanchions. You can wait over there. The humiliation was public, deliberate, performed, and every black person watching felt it. A young man near the ATM, a brother in his 20s, hoodie, earbuds dangling, stopped scrolling his phone, his eyebrows pulled together as he watched. A woman with braids holding her toddler gripped the stroller tighter, shaking her head in disbelief. Elias stayed where he was. Ma'am, I was told to check in at this window. By who? She snapped. Before he could answer, a security guard strode over. Big guy, wide shoulders, hand resting near his belt knot on his weapon, but close enough to make a statement. Is there a problem here? He asked, eyes locked on Elias like he'd already decided the answer. Megan didn't miss a beat. He's trying to access restricted services. I don't know how he even got past reception. Elias felt the room tilt. It wasn't fear he'd lived through worse in the 70s, 80s, 90s. He'd buried friends. He'd marched in shoes that still smelled like tear gas long after the protests ended. This was something different. It was exhaustion. Still, he straightened his shoulders. I'm not here to cause trouble, he said. I have paperwork I was told to bring. That's all. Megan crossed her arms. Uh-huh. Let me guess, you're cashing a sweepstakes check or claiming a wire transfer from a prince? A few uncomfortable chuckles rippled through the linen many, but enough to twist the knife. Elias swallowed hard. His jaw flexed once. Twice. He pulled an envelope from his coat pocket. Thick. Official-looking. Years of Southern politeness told him to hand it over gently, respectfully, but he placed it on the counter with a firmness that made Megan's smirk falter. I suggest, Elias said quietly, that you take a real look before assuming. For the first time, she hesitated. Just a flicker in her eyes, but Elias caught it. Everyone caught it. The young man in the hoodie muttered, Man, this ain't right, loud enough for the security guard to glance his way. But Megan pushed past her hesitation. Fine, she said, snatching the envelope and sliding it toward her terminal. But when this turns out to be some scam, I'm calling for a supervisor. Elias stood there, heart steady, breath measured, while she typed his name into the system with exaggerated annoyance. Every keystroke sounded like judgment. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to, because whatever Megan was about to see on that screen was going to flip the whole room upside down. What Megan didn't know, what nobody in that lobby knew, was that the next screen she clicked would expose a truth so big it would flip the entire bank upside down. And by the time his real identity surfaced, everyone there would wish they'd treated Elias Coleman differently. Megan's fake smile didn't last long. The moment her screen loaded, she froze, eyebrows inching up just a little, lips parting like the words she meant to say got trapped behind her teeth. But she covered it quick, snapping her jaw shut and leaning back like nothing had changed. Your ID doesn't match what I expected, she said, voice crisp, sharp, dismissive. Where did you say you got this envelope? Elias didn't blink. I didn't say, he replied calmly. You never asked. A few people in line murmured. The young brother in the hoodie stepped closer, pretending he needed the deposit slips, but really just making sure he didn't miss anything. The woman with the stroller whispered under her breath, "Lord, not again." The security guard shifted his weight. He wasn't touching his belt anymore, but he still looked at Elias like the man owed him an explanation. Megan clicked her tongue. "I'm going to need additional verification. This isn't adding up. These documents." She tapped the envelope like it was contaminated. "Don't look legitimate. We get a lot of people trying to pull stunts." Elias inhaled a slow breath. You looked at them for 5 seconds. Megan didn't care. She had the smug confidence of someone certain she was right simply because she wanted to be. "Sir, if you can't provide more proof, you'll need to step out of the priority lane. We can't let just anyone access our corporate account system." That word, anyone, landed heavy, the subtle kind of shade you only recognize because you've lived your entire life stepping around it. Elias felt it. Everyone black in that lobby felt it. He didn't raise his voice, didn't lean forward, didn't break his calm. He just said, "My information is correct, ma'am, and I was instructed to check in here." Megan scoffed. "By who? Some call center worker who thought you sounded convincing? Happens all the time." The young man in the hoodie shook his head. "Nah, she trippin'." But Megan kept going. She turned her screen slightly, not enough to violate policy, just enough so the nearest customers could see she was following procedures. Then she spoke loud enough for half the lobby to hear. "This system shows a corporate-level client with your name, but obviously that can't be you. The age is off. The background is off. The profile photo, yeah, that's definitely not you." A couple customers leaned to see the picture, but Megan snapped her monitor back. "Privacy rules," she snapped, as if she cared. Elias's expression tightened, just a little, like a tiny crack spreading along a strong wall. In his head, he heard echoes of old memories. Being told he couldn't try on clothes in a store in Richmond back in '67. Being forced to wait outside a diner because a sign said service entrance only. Being underestimated at a job interview even after 25 years of military engineering. Same story, new room, same feeling. He unclenched his jaw. "Ma'am," he said, "did you consider that maybe the profile photo is older?" Megan snorted. "Sir, the man on this account looks like he belongs here." The silence after that sentence hit different. No one moved. Even the security guard shifted uncomfortably. Elias felt the burn rise higher in his chest, but his voice stayed soft. "What does here mean?" Megan opened her mouth, then hesitated, realizing she'd walked into a corner of her own making. But she doubled down anyway. "It means this is a private tier. People don't just wander in off the street and try to access it." There it was, the truth behind the smile. The young man in the hoodie took out one earbud. "Yo, that's foul." But Megan ignored him. She leaned closer, lowering her voice like she was doing Elias a favor. "If you keep insisting, I'll have to escalate this. You really don't want that." Elias let the moment hang. The sting was there, the old pain sitting heavy on his shoulders, but behind it was something stronger, a quiet fire that had carried him through decades. "I'm only asking," he said, "that you process my documents the same way you process anyone else's." Megan's smile stiffened. "And I'm telling you that you need to step aside." She reached for the phone on her desk, the one used to call supervisors. The young man in the hoodie whispered, "Man, she got no idea who she talking to." Elias didn't say a word, because deep down, he knew something she didn't. All it would take was one more click, one more update on her screen, and this whole lobby would see exactly who she had decided to disrespect. Just as Megan tried to shut him down again, her screen flickered, and something on the next page made her whole face drain of color. Her hand froze on the mouse. The lobby fell silent. Whatever she saw, it wasn't just surprising, it was impossible, and it changed everything. The phone was halfway to Megan's ear when the envelope on her desk slid open just enough for a single sheet to slip out. It fluttered to the counter like it had a mind of its own. The young brother in the hoodie leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Yo, that look official." Megan snatched the paper before Elias could reach for it, holding it up like she was examining a counterfeit bill. Her lips twisted. "The seal looks fake. These signatures don't match anything we have on file." Elias exhaled slowly, a long, quiet breath. The kind a man takes when he's held back a lifetime of biting his tongue. I told you, Megan continued, turning so the security guard could see she was handling the situation. We get people trying to walk in here claiming they have business accounts, claiming they have investments, claiming they have access. And it's always the same, no proof, no legitimate records, just attitude. Attitude? Elias repeated softly. You're raising your voice, she shot back. He wasn't. But that never mattered. The woman with the stroller muttered, She's trying to twist it, classic. The security guard cleared his throat. Sir, maybe it's best if you wait over there while she... No, the young brother said, stepping closer. He ain't doing nothing. Y'all know that. Megan flinched at the pushback, but hardened her tone. This is a private transaction. Please step back. Elias didn't want a crowd forming around him, didn't want this becoming a scene, but the scene was already happening. It was happening the moment Megan assumed he didn't belong. It was happening the moment she talked over him, talked around him, talked through him. The humiliation wasn't loud, it was sharp, focused, surgical. Ma'am, Elias said, I was told this bank had staff who could help me with my account transition. Megan threw her hands up. There it is. That's the word they all use, transition. She mock-whispered to the guard. That's code for scam. Says who? The young brother snapped. Says training, she replied smugly. I know the red flags, and I know disrespect when I see it, Elias finally said. The guard stepped closer. You need to keep your tone calm, sir. Now the young brother took 2 full steps forward. His tone is calm. You got ears or nah? The tension in the room shifted, electric, humming, on edge. Customers who'd tried to mind their business now stared openly. A man near the loan office whispered to his co-worker. A teenager waiting with his mom hit record on his phone. But Megan kept going. We have policies, she said, lifting the document again. And I'm following them. If this man really had a corporate-level account, he wouldn't show up dressed like she caught herself, but too late. Everyone knew what she meant. Everyone felt the slap in the silence that followed. Elias's grip tightened on his cane. Not out of anger, but out of memory. Every moment in his life he'd been sized up, judged, reduced to an image that never matched the truth. I served this state for 40 years, he said quietly. I fixed things most people don't even know exist. I gave Virginia more than it ever gave me. Megan rolled her eyes. Here we go with the stories. The brother in the hoodie blinked. You don't even want to hear him out, do you? Megan clicked her keyboard aggressively. This account holder, whoever he is, has assets that require verification from the upper levels. And that is definitely not you. Elias tapped the counter once. Look again. Her jaw clenched. I did. Look properly. People leaned in. The young brother whispered, She's scared to click that next page. The guard whispered back, Looks like she already messed up. But Megan didn't stop. She turned the monitor slightly, pretending to scroll through forms so fast no human could read them. This says, you're 78. I am. This says you're a veteran. I am. This says you hold. She paused, hard, her face drained. Her fingers froze above the mouse. Her breath caught like someone pressed pause on her lungs, because there, on the screen in bold black letters, was a title she did not expect, a title she could not argue with, a title that made her worst assumptions hit her like a freight truck. Wait, she whispered. This can't be, but it could. And it was. The young brother leaned forward. What'd it say? Megan didn't answer. Because the truth staring back at her was about to crack the entire lobby open and turn her policy into the biggest mistake of her career. For a moment, the only sound in the lobby was the soft hum of the AC vent above teller window 3. Megan didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. She just stared at her monitor, pupils tightening like her brain was trying to make the numbers and titles rearrange themselves into something that made sense. They didn't. They wouldn't. Because the truth glowing on her screen was unshakable. Elias Coleman, primary account, holder U.S. Defense Engineering Division, retired, strategic technology, consultant authorized corporate partner net worth, high 7-figure range. The young brother in the hoodie let out a low whistle. Oh, she messed up. The woman with the stroller blinked twice, gripping the handle like she needed it to stay upright. Even the security guard who'd been sizing Elias up like a problem waiting to happen took a step back. "What's it say?" the brother asked again, louder this time. Megan didn't speak. Her throat worked like she was trying to swallow a handful of sand. She clicked on another tab, then another. Every line told the same story. This man, the same man she'd been humiliating for 10 straight minutes, was exactly the person she had sworn he couldn't be. A high-level client, a decorated engineer, a government-affiliated account holder with security clearance she had no business questioning. Elias watched her face shift through every stage: denial, confusion, panic, and something old and familiar twisted inside his chest. Not satisfaction, not spite, recognition, because he'd seen that look 100 times in his life, when people realized the box they'd tried to stuff him into didn't fit. When they suddenly understood their assumptions weren't reality, they were just bias wearing confidence like a costume. Megan finally whispered, "Sir, this must be a system error." Elias raised an eyebrow. A system error. She nodded too fast. "It happens sometimes. Data mislabels, glitches. It's not a glitch," the security guard muttered under his breath. The brother in the hoodie laughed openly. "Nah, she trying every excuse in the book." Megan's voice trembled as she clicked back to the main profile. "No, it has to be. This says you're the named consultant on the Atlantic Defense Initiative contract. That project handles Elias. Cut her off gently. Things you don't need to explain out loud." The whole room seemed to stop breathing. Even Megan realized how close she came to leaking highly sensitive information in a public bank lobby. She slapped her hand over her mouth like she could shove the words back in. Elias remained calm, completely composed. Almost too composed. The kind of calm that comes from surviving places colder than people's opinions and louder than people's judgments. He leaned forward just enough for his voice to reach Megan's ears. "I told you," he said quietly. "You should have looked properly." Megan's face flushed pale pink, then ghost white. She reached for the phone again, but this time not to call security. This time she hit the supervisor line with a shaking hand. "Mr. Sanders," she stammered into the receiver. "2 need you at window 3 immediately. It's urgent." The lobby buzzed with whispers now. Man, she tried to play him. She really thought he wasn't nobody. "Look at her hands," she's shaking. "She did that to the wrong one today." Elias didn't say another word. He didn't gloat, didn't smirk, didn't rub salt in the wound. He just stood there steady, unbothered, rooted in the kind of dignity nobody could take from him. A door at the back swung open. Mr. Sanders, the branch supervisor, strode out with a crisp navy suit and the posture of someone who takes himself seriously every day of the week. "What's the problem here?" he asked sharply. Megan swallowed. "Hard. It's him." "Mr. Bray." Sanders shifted his attention to Elias and froze. His brows shot up, his shoulders stiffened, and then, to the shock of every single person in that lobby, his voice dropped into sudden respect. "Mr. Coleman," he said, stepping forward quickly. "Why wasn't I informed you were coming today? We have a private office prepared for clients at your level." The brother in the hoodie whispered, "Oh snap, here we go." Every customer watched the power flip like someone turned the world upside down. Elias finally allowed himself a small breath, because the moment he'd been waiting for, the moment where truth pushed back against prejudice, had finally arrived, and everyone in the room saw it. "Hi, friend. Before we continue, I need your help. We've noticed the channel losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and helps us keep delivering great content for you. Your support means everything. Comment your city or country below. Let's see how far this community reaches. Thank you. Now, back to the story. The shift in the room was instant, sharp, electric, undeniable. 1 second, Elias was being treated like he didn't belong. The next, every pair of eyes followed Mr. Sanders, the branch supervisor, as he moved around the counter with the urgency of someone approaching royalty. "Mr. Coleman," Sanders repeated, his voice firm but respectful. "Please accept my apologies for the misunderstanding. If we'd known you were visiting today, we would have arranged the executive suite." The young brother in the hoodie whispered, "Not the executive suite." Boy, she really picked the wrong one today. Megan stood stiff behind her counter, hands trembling like loose wires. Her face looked like she'd aged 10 years in 2 minutes. She tried to speak, but the words tangled in her throat. I didn't know he was Sanders, didn't even look at her. That's because you didn't check properly. And worse, you didn't listen. Elias watched the supervisor with that same quiet focus he'd carried into the room. He didn't smile. Didn't soften. He simply nodded like he was measuring the man's sincerity. I wasn't looking for special treatment, Elias said. Just fair treatment. Sanders closed his eyes for one long second, a man realizing the damage was done before he ever showed up. I understand, he said, and I intend to make it right. He motioned to the side hall. Please, come with me. I'll escort you personally. But Elias didn't move. He looked around instead, at the security guard whose posture had changed completely, at the woman with the stroller who mouthed good for you, at the young brother giving a proud nod, and finally at Megan, who now stood frozen, eyes glossy with panic. This all could have been avoided, Elias said quietly, if she trusted the system as much as she trusted her assumptions. That line hit the room like a sermon. Even the guard murmured, "That's facts." Megan took a shaky step forward. Mr. Coleman, I truly didn't mean. He raised a hand, not angry, not dismissive, just steady. Ma'am, intent matters, but impact matters more. Her chin quivered. The weight of the moment, the eyes on her, the consequences hovering pressed into her shoulders. Sanders finally turned to her. Ms. Lively, I'll handle this. Please step into my office. Her knees buckled a little as she walked away. No one laughed. No one mocked her. The room was too heavy for that. As the office door shut behind her, Sanders motioned again. Mr. Coleman, whenever you're ready. But Elias still didn't move. There was something in his silence, something everyone felt before he said a single word. When I was young, Elias began, voice carrying to every corner of the lobby, my father told me that people don't have to hit you to hurt you. Sometimes all it takes is a tone, a look, a moment when they decide who you are before you even speak. The young brother nodded slowly. Real talk, sir. Elias tightened his grip on his cane, not out of weakness, but memory. I thought maybe after all these years things were changing, and in many ways they are. But then days like today remind me, progress isn't the same thing as arrival. No one dared interrupt him. He wasn't ranting. He wasn't angry. He was telling truth the way only an elder black man could, gentle but heavy, quiet but undeniable. Finally, he took a breath and faced Sanders directly. I'm not here to get anyone fired, Elias said, but I won't pretend this didn't happen. I came today to transition funds for a scholarship program, a program for young engineers, most of them black, right here in Virginia. Sanders straightened. Then we're honored to help facilitate that. But, Elias continued, if the people managing those funds can't see the dignity in a black man before they see the dollar signs in his account, then we have a bigger issue than paperwork. A long silence followed. For the first time since he walked into the bank, the tension didn't feel heavy. It felt righteous. Sanders bowed his head slightly. I hear you, sir, and I agree. After I assist you, I'll start arranging a mandatory training session for all frontline staff. Elias nodded slowly. Good. Make it meaningful. Not something folks sleep through. A few quiet laughs broke the tension, not mocking, just understanding. Sanders opened his hand again. Will you allow me to take you to the executive suite now? This time, Elias stepped forward. The young brother gave him a fist-to-chest salute. The woman with the stroller whispered, "Bless you," as he passed. And with a calm dignity that changed the whole energy of the room, Elias followed the supervisor down the hall, leaving behind a lobby full of people who would be telling this story for years. Not because he was rich, not because he was powerful, but because he was seen finally, unmistakably, on his own terms. The executive suite wasn't far, just a quiet, glass-walled room tucked behind the main lobby, but walking into it felt like stepping into another world. Softer lights, leather chairs, a polished oak table that looked like it belonged in a judge's chambers, not a small-town bank in Virginia. Elias didn't marvel at any of it. He'd sat in rooms fancier than this, rooms where generals debated budgets, where engineers argued over blueprints that shaped national security. But today, none of that mattered. What mattered was the young faces waiting for those scholarship funds. What mattered was how this bank treated people who looked like them. Mr. Sanders closed the door gently behind them. Please, sit wherever you're comfortable, Mr. Coleman. I'm fine standing for now, Elias said, settling his cane next to him. Sanders nodded, hands clasped in front of him, posture straight like he was reporting to a superior. First, I want to apologize again for what happened out there. It was unacceptable, and it doesn't reflect the values we want this branch to stand for. Elias studied him for a long moment. Do you believe that? Truly? Sanders didn't flinch. Yes, sir, I do, and I intend to prove it. Elias finally took a seat. Good. Because this isn't just about me. I've lived long enough to deal with folks making quick judgments. I'm used to it, but there are kids coming up behind me, bright, talented, hungry to build something, and they don't need doors slammed before they even get close. Sanders pulled out a notepad. Tell me what you'd like done. Elias reached into the envelope, this time, not rushed, not pressured, and removed two neatly folded forms. This, he said, placing them on the table, is the transfer authorization for the Coleman Engineering Future Scholars Fund. It'll cover tuition, housing, and stipends for 10 students this year, maybe more if the market treats me kindly. Sanders looked over the documents, eyes widening as he saw the amounts. This is extraordinary, Mr. Coleman. Truly. It's necessary, Elias corrected, voice steady. We lose too many brilliant minds before they ever reach a lab or a workshop. Sometimes all they need is a chance, Sanders nodded, taking notes. We'll process this personally. No delays, no obstacles, and, Elias added, leaning back slightly, I want every teller trained in cultural sensitivity and customer respect. Not the corporate slideshow stuff. Real training, with real instructors. Sanders hesitated for half a second, then nodded. We'll schedule it, and I'll lead the first session myself. That answer earned him a small nod from Elias. Respectful, approving. A brief silence settled in the room, calm, reflective, almost warm after everything that happened. Sanders prepared the electronic form on his tablet and slid it across the table. Just a signature here, sir. Elias reviewed it carefully, every number, every clause. Precision mattered to him. Always had. When he finally signed, the tablet chimed softly. Transfer complete, Sanders said. Elias exhaled with a quiet satisfaction, not relief fulfillment. But as Sanders organized the paperwork, something else weighed on Elias, something heavier than bank forms and signatures. That young woman out there, Elias said suddenly. Megan, Sanders paused. Yes, sir. She needs accountability, Elias continued, but she also needs understanding. Someone taught her to fear certain people at a glance, and someone else failed to unteach her. Sanders swallowed. I agree. I'm not asking you to ruin her life, Elias said, but she needs to face what she did fully, not sweep it under policy. I'll make sure of it, Sanders promised, and I'll speak to her personally. Elias nodded, satisfied, but somber. Good. Because if she treats the next man like she treated me, he might not have the patience, or the years, or the strength to stand tall under it. The truth in those words sat heavily between them. Sanders closed the folder gently. Is there anything else you need, Mr. Coleman? Elias stood, slow but steady. Just one thing. Sanders straightened again. Make sure this place becomes somewhere people feel human. That's all. A simple request. A powerful one. Sanders extended his hand. You have my word. Elias shook it firmly. Years of wisdom, resilience, and dignity in that single gesture. Then, with his cane tapping lightly against the polished floor, Elias walked toward the door ready to face the lobby again, not as the disrespected stranger they thought he was, but as the man he had always been. When Elias stepped back into the main lobby, the room shifted again, but not the way it had earlier. It wasn't the weight of judgment this time. It was the weight of recognition. People who had watched him stand alone now watched him return with a quiet strength that felt bigger than the space itself. The young brother in the hoodie straightened up. There he is, he said with a proud grin. Man walked back out like a whole legend. The woman with the stroller smiled softly, relief in her eyes. Even the security guard, who had once hovered too close, gave Elias a respectful nod. Megan wasn't at the counter anymore. Her window was empty, her chair pushed back. Through the glass office door, Elias caught a glimpse of her sitting stiff across from Mr. Sanders' hands folded tightly, head bowed. Consequences were already unfolding. And maybe, just maybe, lessons too. Elias didn't linger on her. He'd carried enough heaviness for one day. Instead, he looked around at the faces black, white, brown, young, old people who had witnessed the whole arc from dismissal to truth to justice. The atmosphere felt different now. Humble, thoughtful. As he walked toward the exit, the young brother jogged up beside him. "Sir," he said, voice calmer now, "I just want to say thank you. Folks needed to see that today." Elias gave a small, warm smile. "Thank you for speaking up. Not many do." The young man shrugged. "Gotta call stuff out. World don't change if nobody says nothing." Elias nodded. "You're right about that." He stepped outside into the Virginia afternoon, a soft breeze rolling down from the Blue Ridge Mountains, sunlight catching on the hood of his old but well-kept Chevy parked by the curb. The air tasted clean, like something had settled inside him. He paused before opening his car door. Out of everything he had faced in life, from the factory floors of his youth, to high-pressure military labs, to the countless rooms where he'd been underestimated, this moment felt like a circle closing. Not because he'd been proven right, but because dignity had won. Not loudly, not violently, but unmistakably. He looked back at the glass doors of the bank, seeing his reflection faintly older, wiser, still standing. "For every young kid out there," he whispered to himself, "may the world treat you better than it treated me today. And if it doesn't, may you stand tall anyway." He opened the door, settled into the driver's seat, and tapped the steering wheel twice, an old habit, a grounding gesture. Then he drove off, leaving behind a bank lobby forever changed by the simple truth of who he was. A black man who refused to shrink. A black man who carried dignity like armor. A black man who turned a moment of disrespect into a lesson the whole room felt. And somewhere inside that bank, policies would be rewritten. So would perspectives. And maybe even a heart or two. Hi, friend, if you felt something from this story, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. It's quick, it's free, and it helps this channel keep growing. Drop a comment with your city or country. I want to see where you're listening from. And share this video so more people around the world can hear stories that matter. Thank you. Now stay tuned for more.